Alright, so in this video, now we're going to use our random numbers to make some really cool things happen. Alright, so I've got my setup here. I've got my setup function. I've got my size set to 500 by 500. And I've got my background set to black. And I've got my stroke set up to be white because I'm going to make some lines right now. Alright, so what we're going to do is a line. The parameters of a line has the starting x and y positions and then the ending x and y positions. So I want to make those random. So I need to make 4 different random number variables to make this happen. All right. This is just an example of one thing you can do, but we're going to be able to apply it to really any type of parameter or thing inside of your sketch. All right. So what I need to do, remember, a random number has to be a float. So I'm going to declare my variable. So I'm going to do float, and then I'm going to call this one uh, x1 position. And you can call it whatever you want, but try to make it something that's sort of meaningful. All right. And remember, I'm not going to set it to anything yet. I'm just declaring what I'm going to be using. So float, I'll do y1. This is going to be the start of my line. Position, oops, position. All right, now my ending position. So let's see, I'll do float, and this will be x2 position, and float y2 position. All right, so this kind of tells me what they are. X1 and y1 are the beginning, x2 and y2 are the end. Awesome. All right, so now what I need to do is make those variables now be random numbers. So each time it goes through the draw function, I want them to pick a new random number. So this time we're going to do this all inside the draw function. All right, so make sure you're inside the draw curly braces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first variable, which is x1 position, and make sure your capitals are right and everything looks exactly the same. And I'm going to set it equal to, now remember this function random, and then the parentheses. Now inside the parentheses, I want to pick a number that's going to be between the two, between 0 and a number. So right now I set my canvas up to be 500 by 500. So I don't want it to be any bigger than 500 because then it's going to be off my canvas, and then what's the point? So I'm going to put 500 in here. So what this means is that x1 position is going to equal a number between 0 and 500. All right? And I'm going to do this for each of them. So I'm really just going to copy this one, paste it 3 more times. All right? They're all going to be random numbers between 0 and 500. I just need to change the name of the variables. So this is x1, y1, oops, x1 position, y1 position, and then I have x2 position, y2 position. All right, so make sure you got all those right because we're going to plug these in to a line. All right, and we can do that next. So now that we've got our 4 different random numbers, I'm going to type in line. Now remember, I'm just going to plug these in. Now these don't have to be integers. A line will actually accept floats in there. We could make them integers if we wanted to, but to make things go faster, for right now we're going to plug them in as is. All right, so there's x1 position, comma, y1 position, comma, then x2 position, comma, y2 position. Ending parentheses, semicolon. All right, so what happens is each time it goes through the draw function, these variables are going to all get set to some random number between 0 and 500, and then it's going to draw that line. All right, and it's going to keep drawing and leaving them there because my background is set in my setup. And so let's see what happens. I'm just going to hit run. Whoa, see that? All these random lines are going. That is really cool. All right. So if I just wanted to see them draw without them lingering on afterwards, I could move the background into the top of my draw. So every time it goes back, it'll redraw the background as well. And then you'll just see the individual lines being drawn, which is pretty cool also. The one last thing I'll say is if you want to slow this down, right now it's going about 60 frames per second, which is pretty fast. If you want to slow it down, there's another function you can use called delay. A delay is like a wait function, like wait. Well, if we ever did Scratch, it might be like wait a second or wait 2 seconds. Delay is in milliseconds. So I'm going to put this just to show you what this does because it's pretty cool. I'm going to put the delay right at the very end. And if I want it to be 1 second, and these are milliseconds, I need to do 1,000. So if I put 1,000 in here, now it's going to wait 1 second each time. So it's going to happen a lot slower. That's kind of too slow, right? This really gives you an idea of how every line that's being drawn is totally random. All right, that's pretty cool. Now, say we wanted to change something like have a random color. In that case, we would actually have to convert these into integers because an RGB value has to be an integer and not a float. All right, so let's do one more thing. All right, we're going to get rid of this and we're going to do something else. Let me think. Let's do a circle. That's pretty easy, right? So we're going to make an ellipse and we're going to make it appear in random places. All right, and we're also going to make the fill of that ellipse be a different color. So I would need a total of, let's see, 2 variables, a position variable, x and y, and I would also need 3 variables for red, green, and blue for RGB. All right, so let's make those. So I'm going to make, they're all going to be floats because they're all going to be random number. So I'm going to do float x position, do float y position, float red. You can call these whatever you want. I'm just doing this so that I can keep track of them. Float green, float blue. All right, so I have 5 variables now. So in my setup, I'm going to keep everything the same. 500 by 500. My background is going to be black. My stroke, I don't even really need a stroke right now because these aren't going to be lines. I'm not going to do anything. And so for the draw function, what I need to do is make all these variables, assign them a random number. All right. So let's do x position first equals random. And since these are position variables, I'm going to pick something between 500 and 500, or 0 and 500. Okay, so those are going to be kind of the same as the lines because that's as big as my canvas is. Now when I get to the color, what number do you think I'm going to pick between? Okay, if you think of a color value, it's between 1 or 0 and what? All right, it's not 500. It's going to be between 0 and 255. All right, so my red is going to be a random 255. That's as high up a color value as I can get. And that's going to be the same for each of these. Green equals random 255. And finally, blue equals random 255. All right, so I've got all my variables getting set to random numbers. Now I just need to make it happen. All right, so I'm going to draw an ellipse. Well, actually, I'm going to change the fill first. All right, so the fill is going to be what the color of the ellipse is going to be. So let's start with that. So fill, remember that's an RGB value. Okay, so I'm going to put in red variable, my green variable, and my blue variable. Now the only problem here is that these are float data type. Okay, it has the decimal point and the numbers. I need them to be integers. All right, so I don't know if you remember from the last video. What I can do to make these integers is just wrap them in a int function. So notice I type int and then put the red in parentheses. All right, same with the green. Type int, put the green in the parentheses. So now these are going to get converted so I don't get an error. Awesome, so I have my fill all set. Make sure you got two parentheses at the end here because you got to close this one in the beginning. Now I just need to draw or put in my ellipse position. So this is where I draw my ellipse. All right, and I have my X position and my Y position. Do you remember what the last two variables are, or the last two numbers in this? It would be the width, and let me just set it to something like, how about 25 by 25? So it'll be a perfect circle. I can always change those later. All right, so now I set my fill, I set my random position, and these can actually stay as floats. These can have the decimal points and you won't get an error, okay? So let's see what happens. Let's run it. Whoa. So now it's just randomly placing these. It's also picking random color for each one. That is awesome. So what I want you to do is just play around with these. Try to pick different things that you can try to manipulate and make random. You can make a random stroke. You can make random fills. You can make random sizes. You can make random positions. Think of all the different things that we are able to do and try to make some really cool designs. And even try to maybe put in some other variables where it moves or do other things. Try to use some of the stuff that we've already learned and plug that in too and just have fun with it. Okay? Bye.